Hey everyone, Aaron Stewart, Data Access Golf. Let's see, I need to mute that. Data Access Golf, the simulcast. It's obviously a Data Monday. We had another big winner from South America. So two for two for South America so far this year. But let's jump right in. We'll talk about the numbers, see how Sebastian got it done, and we'll go through our presentation and compare it to our base mark numbers and see how it goes. Cool, welcome back. Yeah, another tournament has come and gone in the 2020 season, and Sebastian Munoz got it done there at the Sanderson Open. So, Sanderson Farms Open, pretty heady play, especially when you look at the numbers and kind of get an idea of where he's come from and what he's done and what it's taken for him to get to this point. It was a really impressive win. Just looking at the data, I was super impressed that he held on and got it done, frankly, because there's really nothing in the numbers that would suggest that he would be able to kind of hang on and get it over the finish line. So pretty amazing stuff. A lot of stuff going on, obviously, in the world of golf right now as we come up about a month away from the President's Cup. Some rumblings that Tiger Woods, will he choose himself, will he not, to play in the President's Cup? I saw that Adam Scott had made some comment that the President's Cup would be far better if Tiger Woods did play. He hasn't been playing very well even before surgery. I don't know if after surgery would be much different with not practicing very much. So anyhow, so let's jump right into the numbers real quick. We've got it again. I'm going to do it on my iPad again, and we'll just kind of go with it that way. We'll go through the data on how Sebastian got it done, and we'll compare it to our benchmark numbers and see how those compare, and then talk a little bit about, I actually had a really cool conversation with Fred Shoemaker recently. I think that I'll hold that off. Maybe we'll do that in a later podcast to talk about some of the stuff there. These when we go through the data, tend to take a little bit longer than normal. So let's jump right into it, and we'll take a look at the iPad. I'll bring it up here real quick, and it should be any second here. No, where is it? It's not working. Oh dear. Oh dear. Let me see here. Yeah, we have some technical difficulties. Let me see if I can get it another way. Let's see, it's camera, and it's not even picking it up. That's the weird thing. It's not even picking it up here. Oops, that's not what you want. No. There we go. Okay. That took a little bit of time there. I apologize. We'll pull up it now. And let's see here. Cool. All right. We're good there now, right? All right. We can do a little, let me see if we can do a little picture in picture. We don't need to. So, yeah, we don't really need to do picture in picture. Let's see. No, we're good there. Okay, so first thing we like to do, obviously, I apologize. It looks like I've got some text coming in, and I need to block that somehow. But anyway, so please ignore the text from my family. We've got a little family thing going on, but ignore that, please, and we'll continue on. So, as we like to do here, we like to go through and kind of learn a little bit about each champion. That was really strange. Let me see if I can close some things here. I apologize. This iPad technology not working really well for me right now. So, okay. So, just a couple of things then on Sebastian Munoz. One, I talked a little bit about how his road, I guess, to the PGA Tour is an interesting one. and how he got it done is really, I don't know. It's interesting. I was surprised by some of the things we found. So first and foremost, he played at the University of North Texas in the USA Conference USA, and he won the championship there his senior year. So an accomplished player in a weaker conference, but obviously got the job done. And then he turned pro in 2015, but he played on the Latin America tour, and he won twice there. And this is the kind of the cool thing is that he was on the Latin American tour, and because he'd won there twice, he got a sponsor's exemption to play in his home country at Club Colombia, which is now, it was the Web.com tour at the time, but it's now the Korn Ferry Tour. He won that, okay, and he became the first Colombian-born player to win on the Korn Ferry Tour, the Web.com tour at the time. And then, obviously, as you've probably heard a number of times, he became the first Colombian player to win on the PGA Tour, which is very cool. And as we've got our first two winners, obviously, are from South America, and they both have been winners for the first time from their respective countries. This is becoming a very international game, so that's pretty cool. Then his best finish previously was tied for third in the Greenbrier Classic. And and then he had opening round 61, if you can imagine, just 2 strokes off the magic 59. Then he finished 12th on the Korn Ferry Tour in order to get onto the PGA Tour. So he won a Korn Ferry Tour event in Colombia to get on the Korn Ferry Tour, then finished 12th to get on the PGA Tour in 2018. Okay, so what does this win, this Sanderson Farms Championship win, do for Sebastian Munoz? And we see that his world ranking goes from 179 all the way up to 108th. And he did play last week, so he went from tied 7 in the FedEx Cup points, and then with the win jumps up all the way up into number 1. So he leads now until we get done with next week's tournament, obviously, in the Safeway Open in California, Napa, California. Okay, so the 2020 FedEx season standings, these are always a little silly when we start at the first of the year, but there's Sebastian Munoz, Joaquin Newman, obviously, who won last week, and then Sungjae Im, who really doesn't miss a tournament, right? He plays in everything. But so if you look down through here, there's just not a lot of players we know. We know Brian Harman, we know Harris English a little bit, we know Nate Lashley a little bit from last year, but really not a lot going on there. And as far as the world ranking, we only had kind of a swap. We had Jon Rahm play very well over in Europe, and so he leapfrogged Justin Thomas and took over the fifth spot, where Justin Thomas went from 4th down to 6th. Justin Rose, it looks like he fell from 2nd to 4th, with Dustin Johnson staying at 3rd, and Rory McIlroy, with his performance, staying at 2nd there. So, and we still got Brooks Koepka there at number 1, with Rory closing in, about 3 points behind now. Average points behind. Okay, so moving right along. So the consistency rating is one that I kind of came up with. It's to help us sort of understand where these players fit in based on their performances. And I used to just sort of get confused when you hear different players' names and where they kind of fit in with all the other players out there. And so I came up with this consistency scale. Essentially, it tracks how consistent you are in making the cut, right? If you're a good, consistent player, you'll make the cut a high percentage of the time. And here we have the only legend right now on the board is Tiger Woods. He makes the cut over 90% of the time. Those that are considered elite players make it 80 to 89% of the time, and those would include Koepka, McIlroy, Molinari, Mickelson, Reed, Cantlay. Those guys, over the course of their career, have made the cut between 80 and 89% of the time. Solid are players like Mitchell, Paul Casey, J.B. Holmes. Good players would include people like McDowell, Kisner, Palmer, Na, and again, these are players that won last year. I'm only pulling those players in that won last year. And people that make that make the cut only 59% of the time or below, they're what we call players that are going to lose their card. Typically, they are players that are going to lose their cards. So if you look at Sebastian's numbers here, he's played in 47 PGA Tour events and he's made the cut 27 times. Okay, so that's a consistency percentage rating of 57%. So he would be a guy that we would expect to lose his card and go back to the Korn Ferry Tour. However, because he's won now, he's picked up a couple of years of exemptions, and we do see, and I've been looking at this data, it'll be kind of a fun podcast to do later, we do see that once they win, that flips a switch in their mind, and their consistency rating actually goes up. So we've got some pretty cool numbers that we're building to talk about there. But I would expect Sebastian Munoz to play with a little bit more confidence now, and it sort of frees you up. You're not playing for a job, you're just playing to do well, and I think that takes some pressure off there. Okay, so our benchmark numbers here. You can see they're up at the top. That's the graphic we always put out when a champion wins. It gives some of the data that we include here when we look at the benchmark numbers. I've increased the size of these numbers, so hopefully this year, did get some complaints that it was kind of hard to see sometimes on the screen. So hopefully this will help out, and we can see this a lot better. And then we'll go through and just kind of look to see how well Sebastian plays, not only for the tournament, but how his numbers are compared to the benchmark. So his driving accuracy for this tournament, he hit 52% of his fairways. Our benchmark for hitting, for driver accuracy is 55%. And essentially meaning if we're tracking our numbers and we're hitting less than 55% of our fairways, then that should be what we work on that is the part of the game that we work on. So if you look at all these numbers here in yellow, these are our benchmarks. If we are performing higher than these benchmarks, then that gives us the ability or the right with data backing us to say that we have a quote unquote, air quotes here, tour quality game. Okay, so 55% we consider to be a driving accuracy benchmark. If we're hitting more than 55% of our fairways, then our game would be tour quality off the tee. In this particular case, this is interesting, and I gotta say, I've never seen this since we started doing this. It's only been a year, but I've never seen somebody hit the fairway less than their average and still win a tournament. So this is the first here. In this particular tournament, Sebastian hit 52% of his fairways, so below the benchmark, so he gets a red number there, but he averaged in 2019 60%. So he would be in the green there. He had a decent percentage there. Not great, only 5 percentage points higher than 55%, but still acceptable as far as our benchmarks go. Those in 2019 who hit less than 55% of their fairways for the entire year, Jordan Spieth, Phil Mickelson, and Peter Uihlein of the European Tour fame, right, who did so well over there, American who did well over there and then came over onto the PGA Tour and played well over here and got his card. So, okay, moving right along then. So greens in regulation, this is where we start to see what we typically see with a player who wins a tournament. He averaged 68% greens in regulation in 2019, but for the tournament, 79% of his greens. So even though he hit less than average fairways, he was still able to find the green. Probably speaks to the rough there at the Sanderson Farms Open, right? If you can still miss the fairway and hit a higher percentage of greens, then you've got probably easier rough, right? You're playing out of the rough. Our benchmark there is 65%. Obviously, in both those marks for the tournament and for 2019, Sebastian was above that 65% of greens in regulation. Those that were below 65%, and these names are surprising. For 2019, Brandt Snedeker, who actually played pretty well towards the end of the year, and you've got Justin Rose, and you've got Francesco Molinari, a former Masters winner there, who hit less than 65% of the greens in regulation. Interesting. Okay, sand saves for the tournament. He averaged 50%. In 2019, he averaged 49%, so just 1 percentage point higher than that. 45% is what we consider to be our benchmark. We need to get up and down out of the sand 45% or higher. Those that got up and down less than that out of the sand, Paul Casey, Keegan Bradley, and Jonathan Vegas. Johnny Vegas. Less than 45%. So that is part of the game that they should work on. Strokes gained putting, not something that we look at for ourselves just because there's no way to really track that day to day. But in this particular tournament, this is where you can really see Sebastian went crazy, right? So he picked up 6.25 strokes on the field over the course of the week, where typically he only picks up 0.076 strokes on the field. So his putting, based on his 2019 average, much higher, much better. And so greens in regulation were very good, and then he was converting when he hit these greens, impressively so. Scrambling, 2019, 58%. Our benchmark is 55%. For the tournament, he got up and down 80% of the time. Okay, when you're making putts like that, and you're going to get up and down better as you're scrambling, right? Your scrambling number is going to go up. Scrambling less than 55% for 2019, Phil Mickelson. Okay, that was surprising to me. I don't normally put a player on here twice, but I was so shocked by seeing Phil Mickelson's name, because we see him as the short game guru. I can't believe that he averages up and down less than 55%. And we can see why. He obviously won at Pebble Beach, but then struggled kind of for the rest of the year, and you can kind of see why there. If he wasn't able to get up and down, and his game's kind of crazy, we know off the tee, as we see there, he hits less than 55% of his fairways, that if he's not getting up and down more often than that, he does not have a chance to play well. And he didn't for the remainder of 2019. So, putting then. So, we've changed this, and I know I've talked about this ad nauseum in the past. I don't want to bore you too much with it, but we believe here at Data Access Golf that you really should spend most of your time practicing your 5-footers and in. If that becomes a very strong part of your game, you take pressure off your scrambling, your sand saves, you take pressure off so many parts of your game. You take pressure off your lag putting. So this becomes a very important stat. Right now we have got our benchmark set at 80%. Honestly, if you want to improve your game super quickly, and you spend all your time on 5-footers where you can make 90% of your 5-footers, just watch how much pressure that takes off the rest of your game. Your lag putting game, your sand game, your scrambling game around the green. When you know you can make a 5-footer, then you've got a 10-foot circle around that pin that you have to hit into, and you're going to make 9 out of 10 of those. Just think what that would do to your game. You will see your score go down. If you can get your 5-footers up to 90% make, a 90% make rate would be incredible for your game, guarantee it. So, Sebastian Munoz, he averaged in 2019 93%. Okay, so that was the strength of his game, his 5-footers, and he was still only. The amazing thing to me, if you look at 2019, his strokes gained putting, he was positive, he was above 0, but he wasn't blowing the field away. But his 5-footers, it was incredible. He made 93% of his 5-footers. Okay, so I didn't look at his 4-3 or 2-footer numbers, but they can't be that good. You expect him to do a lot better, take a lot of pressure off his game. And then putts per round, he averaged 29 putts per round, and our benchmark there is 29.5. Not really that as important a number as it typically used to be now that we've got strokes gain and we understand how these 5-footers can really work. But there you go, just looking at it. The money, always good to look at the money, right? So let's take a look at the money here. He picked up $1.188 million for his work. His score of 270, which was quite a bit higher than the 250 something previously that Joaquin threw down. Per day, that makes him $297,000 a day, or if it's a 5-hour round, as we're assuming, $59,400 an hour for his trouble. $4,400 per stroke, and for his career, he has made $2.9 million, 2.951 actually. $1 million. He's made 27 cuts, as we mentioned before. So his cut number, his average dollars per cut made, is $109,000. Okay, so just as kind of a fun thing I threw down there at the bottom, you've got Tiger Woods, who makes $365,000 per cut on average. You've got Rory McIlroy, makes $336,000 per cut. Dustin Johnson makes $289,000 per cut. And then Brooks Koepka just leapfrogged Justin Thomas at the end of the year. He makes $286,000 per cut, where Justin Thomas dropped actually last year down to $277,000 per cut. So that's essentially the numbers that got it done. We obviously haven't played any majors yet, so we don't have anything to talk about there. But those are the numbers. We'll get this updated and moved over onto our page so we can talk about it a little bit more. I wanted to go back to putting really quickly. I know that there's a lot of you out there that feel like you don't have a lot of time when you get to the golf course. And I would recommend, honestly, if you have any time at all to putt, please spend most of your time on those 5-footers, 5 feet and in, and just work on that. Anytime you've got, work on the 5-footers. And then maybe right when you have to walk away, 90% of your time on the 5-footers, Then go out and hit a couple of long lag putts just to kind of get the speed for the greens, and just focus on that and watch how much better your game gets. These 5-footers are hugely important, and we don't spend a lot of time on it, and the data's pretty clear. If you get really good at 5 feet and in, it will change your game. It will take, and it's so much more than just being a good putter from 5 feet. You take pressure off your chipping game, off your sand game. You take pressure off your approach game, because you take pressure off even birdie putts, right? I mean, if you've got a 15-footer and you can put a pretty good wrap on it, get it to the hole, like 100% of putts that don't get to the hole don't go in, right? So if you you can make a 3-foot comebacker with no problem at all because you are 90% or higher from 5 feet, then you're going to be able to be a little bit more aggressive on your birdie putts. It makes a huge difference to your game. So get super comfortable and confident with those 5-footers and change your game. That's the big thing that we see here. I was really impressed with the 93% mark for Sebastian Munoz. Great win for him, obviously. Changes his life. Coming up from South America, he's a local hero again, just exactly what we said for Joaquin. He is a local hero now. You go back and he's going to have the parades and the excitement and whatever to come up and win on such a big stage on the PGA Tour, the biggest tour in the world, and to become take home $1 million is a big deal. So really happy for him and excited for him and his family. We'll see him more on tour now, right? Full exemptions. He'll be able to play in every tournament that he wants to play in, and we'll see him a lot more, for sure. Couple things, just sort of some housekeeping. So these videos that we do for Mondays after the win, they will be live on the Data Access Facebook page for that week. And then once we do another one, then it gets bumped, and the previous one gets put into the Data Access Golf Private Club, which is just a private Facebook group for those who are 30 and older, who have pretty typical lives, who are too busy, who don't play golf full time every day, and want to become as efficient as possible at practicing, so we can still come to the office and work, but have some strategies and some drills where we can practice in small areas and get much better at our golf. So we're going to be leveraging technology, we're going to be leveraging all the best exercises to make sure that we can get better living life, right? I mean, just being normal dudes, normal women who have lives, who are busy and don't have the opportunity to go to the golf course every single day and practice. And I've learned the hard way that you can get better at golf, even though it's like in Utah here, it snows, so we've got 3 to 4 months where we cannot play outside. And so I've kind of learned utilizing that there's so much cool technology out there now that can help us get better indoors. So I have made unbelievable advancement to my game by being indoors. And so those are the types of things that we're going to share with you. Obviously, mindset and all of that comes from Extraordinary Golf and my discipleship of Fred Shoemaker for the last 12 years. Going to share everything with you. Had a great conversation with Fred yesterday and discussed this podcast, discussed what's going on here at Data Access Golf. And he made some suggestions and some recommendations to me that I am going to wholeheartedly support and jump in and push along with his blessing. And I really appreciate his knowledge and his wisdom, and the stuff that we talked about yesterday is mind-blowing. And I'm excited to share my interpretation of that. And there's a lot of work that has to be done before we can share the data that's sort of coming out. But I was really just so impressed with how much work and how much data is being gathered on these certain aspects of golf to make sure that we have the opportunity to get better as quickly as possible, which I think is completely cool. So anyway, thanks for joining me today on this Data Access Monday, where we review the stats of the previous champion, Sebastian Munoz. Great win at the Sanderson Farms Open. Until next Tuesday, I guess Monday, no, until I think we'll be able to get it done on Monday. Until next Monday, we've got a lot of, I think you're noticing, we've got a lot of things, a lot of changing, different podcast platform and different artwork and all kinds of things are changing for season 2. So hang with us, we'll get it done and we'll get it figured out, and it will be a great year here at Data Access Golf. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, Aaron Stewart saying, play well. Thanks. And it's right.